So welcome everyone. Today we're doing a presentation on RAMS. So if you don't know what RAMS are, it's risk assessment method statement. And it's basically for contractors to make sure they're legit and that they're safe to go about the work that they're going to complete. Basically, it's about health and safety compliance with regulations, obviously ISO 45000. And then also it kind of comes into a bit of like fraud prevention in terms of where we're not meant to give work orders out to people who aren't approved and compliant contractors. So making sure that the contractors are, authentic and, do what they say they're going to do. And then also the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm doing an audit on the panel to make sure that people are up to date and all payments are correct, that kind of thing. So it's kind of come into that as well. Yeah, so obviously basically, essentially contractors upload their RAMS and certificates for our approval on the panel, and then it goes through a kind of review process annually, and we just continue to make sure that if they need to update it, they do, and yeah, everyone's doing what they should do. So risk assessment method statement, as I said, just outlining how you do a job safely, identifying risks, and we'll talk a lot about kind of how you do that, whether it's limiting, eliminating, or substituting them. So that could be just like doing things in a different way, or finding ways around risky situations. And then then it's about training your staff and making sure that the people who are then going to do the works are also, they know what the risks are and how they're going to address them. And then on screen you can just see a few examples of kind of what we think of as low and high risk trades. Yeah, so they show us that, so to us, they show as a property manager, you're looking at the contractor has effectively planned the works and that they're there to do it safely. Contractor risk is determined by the works they select on the panel. So I don't know if you guys have done it before, where if you make yourself a contractor, you have to say the type of works you're going to do. So whether you're a plasterer or a plumber, you select that, and then the system will tell you what RAMS is required. And for example, Matthew downstairs has been phoning people who haven't got their RAMS to make sure they do upload them. So like the contractors should know what they have to upload because the system will tell them. But yeah, and then the RAMS are for property managers to check once they come back. High risk jobs require specific RAMS, and again, obviously must be submitted to the panel. So yeah, this is just like a small thing of when RAMS are required and when it's not, and obviously low risk RAMS, like you're not going to need big risk statement for gardening or cleaning or just someone out to fix a couple of screws. But obviously, if it's high risk demolition, hot works, working at height, you're going to need more detailed RAMS for those things. And then this is just kind of a way to think about how RAMS should be put together. So ensure the right checks before work takes place. Making sure that they're signing in, checking and showing permits. And then also some examples of some high risks which would require prior review from bench, and basically that's like in the bottom right area, and that basically means, I asked Marianne about that, and it's basically it needs to be signed off by her or John essentially. So that, as you can see, things like close to railways. And then this is the step for risk assessment. So identifying the hazard, identifying the control measures, assessing the risk of harm, what further action can be taken. So that's again what I spoke about before: minimising, reducing, substituting, and then communicate the findings so all are aware in the organisation. So that's wearing extra PPE.
So an example would be if, for example, you are doing a repair on an emergency light. There's a rubbish one, but a repair on emergency lights in a room. So the significant hazard identified is that while you're doing the repair on the emergency light, there's a possible risk of, electrocution shock. There's a possible risk that you're going to be using a ladder. The ladder could fall, that the ladder could fall, break. The possible risk would be that somebody is going to walk past your ladder and they're going to hurt themselves or you. Those are you identifying the hazard, the potential hazards. You're identifying the risk control measures. So how likely is it that you are going to get electrocuted? How likely is it that you are going to fall off your ladder? You're assessing the risk of harm. you know, if you do fall off your ladder, you're going to break your back. Are you going to have a broken arm? That you're assessing what kind of risk and what kind of impact that's going to have on you, and then you're looking at the further action required. So, for example, you've assessed the risk. You're going up your ladder and you're changing the emergency light. You're seeing the risk could be that you fall off your ladder. What further action is required? Further action is that you are checking that the ladder has been checked and is safe for use. You're checking that there are no cables anywhere. You're checking that nobody has access to the room that could possibly trip you up. That is where you are assessing, and then you're communicating those findings to those people affected. So you're telling people in this building that you shouldn't come into this room so that they don't hurt themselves and they don't potentially knock over the ladder. And that is your risk assessment. That is how you assess an issue.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. And yeah, so that leads quite nicely into, so this is how we talk about, how we think about risk in terms of its on a scale of kind of severity to likelihood. So that's kind of the vision thing to, you know, if it's obviously more likely and more risky, it becomes, yeah, more dangerous. This is why we have RAMS and what I've spoken about before, kind of elimination, substitution. So elimination is the dangerous element essential. So you might, you know, not have to do it. Substitution using a lower risk alternative. Engineering control, so that could be about modifying your equipment or using design and planning to alter the risk. And then administrative is kind of logistical, so that's about number of people, this is there. And then PPE is just obviously making sure you're wearing the right protective equipment. And yeah, so this is kind of the process of how we would review RAMS. So first of all, it's for the contractor. So we say that obviously an experienced contractor would kind of produce a method statement, and then a senior member of the contractors organisation review it to then pass to us. Once they've approved it, it then comes to us, and so we need to site manage it 2 weeks before, and then obviously goes through our senior teams as well. And obviously you can see if it's rejected, we just return it to the contractor for them to basically improve it, and then the end result hopefully is method statement gets signed off by all parties. And then, yeah, this is just a few things to think about that RAMS manage. So obviously you've got ladders, you know, safety harnesses in terms of like heights, gas, electricity. And then, yeah, this is just an example that we thought of to do with RAMS. So it's just like an example. So just changing an aircon filter, changing our aircon cartridge, some things that you might need to think about. So chemicals in the system, exposure, how you mitigate them through, you know, PPE, kind of thing. Same with electric, scaffolding. It's just like an example for you to think through. And then, yeah, permits to work. So this is the kind of process of high risk work. So must be formal, written, specify the works and precautions. And then it goes to approving, issuing permits and making sure the work's done responsibly. And then here we're getting into like the more specific types of high risk work. So obviously hot works are anything where heat, sparks, or could risk fire, combustion, flammable materials. So these, you know, it's just about how you think about these risks, maybe ventilation, firefighting equipment, and working at height, obviously, working in confined spaces. So that's obviously about risks of lack of oxygen, where spillage would cause harm because you can't get out or something like that. So you need to think about the emergency procedures for how you would get out, and maybe the example it gives on there as well is about CCTV for monitoring to make sure you're safe. So, and obviously also PPE. Working at height, mentioned this as well, but obviously it's use of equipment, minimising the height, protection against fall. Yeah, making sure that if it can be avoided, you do.
And all of these permits, if you look at the bottom of the page, it says use the SF-F-10D working with electricity permits. We have standard permits to work as part of our ISO accreditation. So whilst they will provide permits to work, if you're doing major works, they'll say, here's our standard permit to work. If you're having the work monitored or managed by a surveyor, they will also give them specific standard permits to work they have to. But if we're doing managed work, so if we're doing anything that requires a permit to work, these can be found on our system.
Yeah, thank you. That's an important point. So working with electricity, So again, it's about surveying, knowing the kind of electrical system, where are the potential risks? Obviously, switching off circuits is, yeah, an obvious one. And then again, requires the work permit, as you can see at the bottom. Breaking ground, again, think about maintenance of equipment. Fire detection. Yes, think about maintenance of equipment. This leads on from what you gave the example with the light. Yeah. So obviously the risk to the building is obviously that you damage the fire detection equipment, or there's a risk in the moment of it just not working. So I think, yeah, obviously you need to think about how you work and the risks. Breaking ground, same kind of thing. Think about how they're going to plan for the types of work they're doing, making sure they have the right equipment. As you can see in the bottom right, the gardening, obviously, don't think it really counts as breaking ground, so don't need to worry with things like that. But obviously for more demolition works, this is particularly relevant. And then public domain, this is one which is quite relevant with the welcome sites, because a lot of them don't have, they're right on the street. So obviously you need to think about closing off the pavement, making sure that people aren't like walking underneath people on ladders and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's most relevant with welcome.
And property managers need to think about that when they're instructing works to commence. If you're instructing your window cleaning, if you're instructing any works to your gutters, if your building is on a main road, you're going to have to cordon off the area. So how does that affect? Who does that affect? And the fact that you need to have a permit to do that. It's not just window cleaning in itself is unlikely to require a permit, but if it's going to be done at street level, you're going to need a permit.
But you get through the council
and on our system.
Oh yeah, but you do have to also.
You also do need to get a permit from the council if you're going to block off the street.
And that's the end. Any questions?
Relevant questions?
That rules me out.
Great.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How do I do that?
Highlight the green bars.
Oh, wrong ones.
No, that's it. No, bottom no.
Start recording. Middle.